Hello, I am Aries. I am once again back with another number 6 reading. We are on Volume 2, Chapter 3, I believe. Just a note, nothing has been going my way today. I've been trying to record this for so long. But anyway, I finally have the time to do it. Finally, there's no noise. So, but if there is, if I do get interrupted, I apologize. I'll just have to, pause and you won't notice it. I will. But anyway, we are on chapter 3. This chapter is called Sin and Sanctity. Oh boy. Oh boy. Alright. Let's just read. Humans are shapeshifters. There's not that's not in this world. Ihara Saikaku's tales from various provinces. Alright. That was the little quote in the beginning. They do these quotes in the beginning. You should know this by now. The slope that Shion had skidded down turned out to be an enormous pillar tipped over on its side. Upon closer inspection, he could see that the base was carved out with the figures of several women robed in thin, translucent cloth. Rusty metal foundations were all that remained of what probably used to be an arched ceiling, and several weathered vines feebly clung to them. The wall had collapsed entirely, and chunks of stone in all sizes were scattered hither and thither. Hither and thither, hither and thither. That's just such a silly. Try saying that, hither and thither. It's so fun to say. If he had accidentally struck his head on one of those, Shion shuddered. The scene before his eyes was something Shion was seeing for the first time. Naturally, there was no such dilapidated buildings to be found in number 6. All buildings were built accordingly to their purpose, with efficiency and functionality prioritized above all. Remains such as these, which had drifted through time, exposed to the wind and rain, were synonymous to illusion and were not a product of reality. He drew in a breath and let his gaze wander about him again. The wind whipped about in a fierce dance, as if continuing its journey toward yet a more ruinous state. A portion of the wall made a dry, crackling sound as it crumbled right before Shion's eyes. "Nezumi," he called. It wasn't a plea for help. He just wanted to call his name. "You're there, aren't you? Come out already." "You're getting sharper," said a voice somewhere from above. Shion looked up to see Nezumi sitting on the window ledge several meters up. Nothing remained of the window itself except for the frame. The rectangular void, which was bordered in black, looked like a yawning mouth on the face of the crumbling wall, opened wide to let out a scream. Nezumi jumped down from his spot several meters up. He landed squarely on the soft dirt. "You're light on your feet," Shion commented. "I am most humbled by your gracious compliments, your highness." "Quite something," Shion quipped. "Not to mention how amazingly fast you seem to disappear when you get into a tight spot." Nezumi shrugged his shoulders slightly and gave a soft chuckle. "You even learned how to be sarcastic. Quite something yourself. Grown up a bit, haven't you?" "I must have gotten 10 years' worth of experience from walking through that market." Nezumi's hand waved languidly in front of Shion's face. "So you nearly got mowed down by a gun, got seduced by a woman, tripped over a dead body, and got hit on by an old man. Well, I guess for a little boy like you, that counts for about 10 years. But, you really have gotten better at running away," Nezumi said approvingly. "Way better than your last try with the fat guy. Why? Okay. Unnecessary, but okay." "The disposers, you mean?" "Yep. It looked like that geezer was seriously into you. To be honest, I thought you'd be good as gone if you managed to get dragged inside." "You disappeared awfully fast for that." "I don't get involved in more trouble than I need to." Nezumi laughed silently. "But you did a good job of making a getaway. Let me tell you, though, those guys don't give up easily. And you stand out on your own as it is. I'd be careful if I were you. It is with utmost gratitude that I accept your words of advice, your majesty. Oh dear, your comebacks have gotten bitter too. Have gotten better too. Nezumi laughed out loud this time, but softly. The thin dog was sprawled out on the ground, wagging its tail from side to side. The squalor of the market felt like a dream. A silent stillness pervaded the place. I don't know what. A silent stillness pervaded the place, as if the mountains of debris were absorbing all the sound around them. Nezumi, where are we? Take a guess. I don't have a clue. Looks like it used to be a pretty big building. It's a hotel. There used to be a hospital across from here. Beside that was a playhouse, I think. I don't know much about this place either. A hospital, a hotel, a hospital, a playhouse. So this really used to be a decent town. I guess so. I mean, I don't really know what a decent town is supposed to look like, but there probably weren't bodies everywhere, to say the least. At least back then. Back then? Before No.6 was established. Shion wasn't surprised. He had expected as much. He closed his fingers lightly over his palm. I've learned the history of No.6 and how it came to be. It was one of the very first classes we took. Mm-hmm, Nezumi replied offhandedly. A series of large-scaled wars erupted all over the world as the last country was coming to a close. It was before neither of us were born. As a result of the massive amount of bombs and biological weapons that were used, the land was utterly destroyed as the climate deteriorated severely. The majority of all land masses was just a few tiny exceptions, with just a few tiny exceptions, lost all ability to sustain human life. There were an enormous amount of casualties. The people that remained vowed never to war again, and those regions that were spared destruction, they founded 6 utopian cities, and No.6 was one of them. That's what you learned? Yeah. And you always believed it to be true? That's the truth we were taught to believe. You remember what you said on the day we first met, Nezumi said. You said you didn't think No.6 was perfect. I did. Was that a lie? No, Shion answered. I honestly thought so, but before I met you, I didn't realize that was how I really felt. I met you, and that's when I finally knew. He had met Nezumi and realized. He had finally heard the sound of his own conscience creak as it strained against its shackles. He had always felt suffocated. In No.6, he had everything. He had plenty of food, a warm bed, and full access to medical care at his fingertips. And it didn't stop there. At the age of 2, when he had been acknowledged as a top-ranking individual in his examinations, he had acquired the privilege to live in the luxury neighborhood of Kronos. All of its residents were provided a first-class environment on many facets. Before he had met Nezumi, on that stormy night of his 12th birthday, he had been surrounded by everything he could wish for, all of first-class quality. But that day, gazing at the wind and rain that rumbled out his window, what Shion had felt was a destructive impulse that seared him to the very core. He had felt unbearably suppressed. Like a corralled animal that instinctively rams itself against the fence, Shion had wanted to be released from the invisible cage that trapped him. At the very bottom of the deepest part of Shion's subconscious, a voice had been resounding. This is a facade. Here, everything is given to you. But there is nothing here. You can't live here anymore. So escape. Break it. Destroy it. Destroy what? Everything. Everything? When the voice within him had overlapped with Nezumi's words, Shion had finally understood. I don't know the truth. I don't know anything. Nezumi's gaze slid away from Shion as he turned his back to him. Shion grabbed his arm. Nezumi, tell me. Tell me the truth. Not a lie or a haphazard excuse. Tell me its true form, the holy city of No.6. His fingers were shaken off roughly. I'm not your nanny. If you want to know, then find out for yourself. He was shaken off again. No matter how many times he tried to grasp at Nezumi, he was always pushed away, rejected ruthlessly. But still, Shion kept extending his hand. The dog was pressing its body against him. It was so thin its ribs jutted out, but it was still warm, very warm. It had the warmth of something who was alive. Are you... Are you feeling sorry for me by any chance? The dog twitched its drooping, light brown ear. For a moment, it looked like it grinned at him. Then it lumbered ahead of him to Nezumi's side. Nezumi's hand slowly and gently petted the dog's head. So you're nice to dogs, huh? Dogs don't act like babies. But dogs can't sew. What? Dogs can't suture a wound. I noticed the suturing kit was still intact in the emergency case. If you ever get hurt again, I'll sew that wound right up for you. So. Why, thank you, Nezumi said sarcastically. Your offer is so great it's sending chills down my back. That face came into my dreams for quite a while after that day, you know. Did I look that great? You were grinning. You had this look on your face like you were having the time of your life. Every time I dreamt about it, I had nightmares. Well, it was the first time in my life doing a suture. I remember being really excited. Say, Shion said enthusiastically. So, did you take out the stitches yourself? Of course. It was easier than making soup. Did it leave a scar? Yeah, but I won't show you. Shion stuck out his lip. Don't be stingy. Okay. Watch your feet, Nezumi interrupted loudly. The stairs start here. We're going up. The sun was setting lower, and darkness was setting in thickly. A large part of the stairs had crumbled away like the wall, and what was left of it wound upwards in a wide clockwise curve. Here the ceiling was still intact. It looked like it had originally been painted white, and although most of it had peeled away, there were white flecks of paint still left over here and there. A chandelier was hanging over the stairwell, and to Shion's surprise, it was relatively undamaged. So this place really was a hotel? It still is. Huh? This place is still used as a hotel. No way. They emerged at the top of the stairs and were greeted by a large, vacant chamber. It had probably been the lobby. There were walls. What? The walls were set in glass from floor What? The walls were set in glass from floor to ceiling. The panes in the top half had been shattered and strewn over the floor, but the bottom pane still remained unbroken. Ripped and faded drapes hung lifelessly over them. Vines that had probably intruded through the broken windows clung densely to the walls, crisscrossed like a network of capillaries. Leaves were falling from them, adding to the thick layer that had already carpeted the floor. It was thanks to the dim light in the room that Shion had been able to decipher this much despite the settling darkness. It came from a candle that was burning on top of a stone table. Nezumi, do you smell something? The candle burning, maybe? No, it's not wax. It smells almost like some animal. Nezumi gave a laugh. You really have come a long way. Your nose has gotten sharper. Now, let's try working on your eyesight. Look. Ah. A shadow moved in the darkness, where the light could not reach. It was not human. It had 4 legs, 2 pointed ears, and was growling menacingly. A dog, he whispered. It was a large dog, covered in short, dark brown fur, with a fierce glint in its eye. Its throat was rumbling in a low growl. Shion took a step backwards. He's not the only one, Nezumi added. There was a note of amusement in his voice. He was enjoying Shion's reaction. Shion resisted the urge to turn and give Nezumi a glare. He had no attention to spare for that. With the first dog in the lead, several dogs of all shapes and sizes and colors were emerging from the darkness. They were far from what could be called pets. They were dirty, their eyes glinted viciously, and their teeth were bared. Is this a nest for wild dogs? Might be. What do you want to do? Run away? If you don't decide soon, you'll get your throat torn out. The dark brown dog approached him warily. It wasn't growling anymore. It silently but steadily drew up to him, without ever lowering its gaze. Shion gazed back into the set of caramel eyes that were the same color as its fur. Behind the savage light in its eyes, there resided something surprisingly gentle. Shion could feel its presence there. Intellect? Shion lowered himself into a kneel. The shattered glass crunched underneath his denim-clad knee. Sorry. Oh, you distracted. Where was I? Huh. Nezumi fit. Oh my god. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting notifications. I need to not. Look at that. Shion lowered himself into a kneel. The shattered glass crunched underneath his denim-clad knee. Nezumi fidgeted. Shion didn't move. Crouched on the ground, he stared straight at the dog. The dog stopped. It stood still in front of him. It opened its mouth, lolling its pink tongue. It licked the tip of Shion's nose. Then it lay down on the spot and gave a yawn. All the other dogs began moving about on their own. Some began to groom each other. Others sprawled out on the floor. Still others began sniffing at their surroundings, and none of them seemed to have any concern for Shion's presence. I passed the interview. Shion grinned as he looked up at Nezumi. Nezumi clicked his tongue and turned away. Didn't the wild dogs scare you at all? He said sourly. They did, but wild dogs don't like candles. Nezumi sniffed in derision. You've never even seen a candle before. I just did, for the first time. It was brighter than I imagined it to be. Hey, Nezumi, does someone live here? Laughter rang out. It echoed off the ruins and faded into the darkness. Okay, a new character? Hang on, I need to know what kind of voice. I need to know. I don't remember who this is. Whoa. Okay. I think I know what to do. Pleased to have you, guest. It was a human voice, but he couldn't see who it belonged to. The voice was echoing from so many directions that he couldn't tell from whence it came. It ricocheted and overlapped in countless layers. Just listening to it made him feel dizzy. Stop shitting around. Nezumi bent down. He picked up a piece of debris and flung it straight into the darkness where the dogs had come from. It was sucked into the gloom, but he could hear a definite sound in the distance as it hit the floor. Watch it! The focus of the voice settled to one point in the darkness. It was a young voice. A light flickered in the inky black pool. That's some violent way to greet someone, Nezumi. You've got no manners. You could say, you could use some manners yourself, if that was what you called a proper way to welcome a guest. A figure was weaving through the dogs towards them with a candle holder. Even by the candle's flame, the person looked like he was thrown in shadow. His waist-length hair, his eyes, his trousers that were ripped at the knees, and his baggy sweater were all black. He had tan skin. Was he a boy? A girl? Okay. I'm assuming that they hadn't really used gendered pronouns, or because pronouns are different in Japanese, so it's like, you know, they hadn't really done that yet. Shion couldn't make the distinction. The stranger's pointed chin and round eyes reminded him of a small rodent. He was very small and thin, and reached only up to about Shion's shoulders in height. He lives here, Nezumi said. I don't know his real name. We just call him Inukashi. Okay. Like dog lender? And that has underline. I'm supposed to, it's probably the translation of that. And that's the one. Wait, no, this is the other person. That's the one, the stranger answered. Lending dogs is my trade. Nice to meet you, Shion. Inukashi grinned. Shion was taken by surprise. Surprise. You know my name? I'm quick to catch on to things around here. As long as I have my dogs, getting any information about these parts is a piece of cake. I know your name, and I know that you kicked the disposer guy in the nuts before you came running here. This guy told me everything. The emaciated dog wagged its tail from its place beside Inukashi. You can speak with dogs? I'll hold conversations with anyone, as long as they're not human. Whenever you want any information, feel free to come to me. Inukashi extended his hand with a smile. He was wearing a thick, silver ring. It matched well with his tan skin. Nice to meet you too. Shion also extended his own hand. It had been a while since he had shaken hands with someone. So far, his experience had only consisted of running away, yelling, or rolling around. Inukashi's face was open and affectionate, and reminded him of a puppy. A sharp pain ran through his palm. Ah! Shion withdrew his hand hastily. At the base of his index finger, there was a small wound about the size of a pinprick. Blood was already starting to well up from it. It ran down the palm of his hand in a single red stream. He thought he felt the tips of his fingers go numb. Inukashi threw his head back and cackled. What was that for? Shion said in disbelief. What was that for, he says? Inukashi crowded. What a surprise! You fell right into that handshake, and you're turning on what? Oh, and you're turning on me and asking me what was that for? Classic. Inukashi showed his palm to Shion and bent his fingers slightly. A tiny needle tip poked out of the middle of the ring. When he straightened his fingers, it retracted again. It's been used as an assassination weapon for ages. Well, the proper way to use it would be to coat the needle tip with poison, but I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything to these, so you can relax. Shion pressed hard on the base of his finger. He licked his dry lips and opened his mouth in question. Why would you do that? Oh dear, said Inukashi exaggeratingly. Now he's asking me, why would you do that? Inukashi's gaze moved to Nezumi, who stood by silently. Haven't you taught this guy anything about how to live here? That's not my responsibility. You picked him up and brought him home, didn't you? If you're going to pick up a stray, you gotta take care of him properly. He'll make himself useful one day. I'm not sure about that. Inukashi laughed again. If he doesn't, just eat him. Or is he... Inukashi's gaze traveled to Shion's hair. He's got interesting hair. Has he got issues, or what? Nezumi turned up the corner of his mouth and answered shortly. As many issues as the dogs you have. Too many to count. Uh-huh, so the rumors were true. You really are keeping a young boy as a pet. Inukashi's face turned serious as he stared at Shion from head to toe. It was a bold and insolent gaze. The thin dog suddenly raised itself off the floor and barked once. 2 furry brown balls came tumbling out of the darkness. They were puppies, probably a month or 2 old. Their noses and tails were tipped with white. The skinny dog lay down again, showing its belly. Its teats drooped pitifully. The puppies eagerly latched themselves onto them. Their round bottoms wagged from side to side. Wow, puppies! Shion exclaimed. He gently petted their backs so not to get in the way of their feeding. Wow, Nezumi, look! They're so soft. Why don't you try petting them too? No, thanks. But look, they're puppies. So you're a mom, huh? It must be tough for you, raising all these kids. Inukashi furrowed his brow and retreated half a step away from Shion. What's up with this guy? What's he doing having a serious conversation with a dog? Is he unbalanced or something? Nezumi pointed to his temple. He's a little vacant up here. It comes naturally to him. Comes naturally, huh? Why are you taking care of this weirdo? Like I said, he's got issues. And he might not look it, but he's pretty good with his hands. He can even pull off a simple surgery. I don't care what he can do. I wouldn't have any of it. He'd never be anything more than dead weight. Couldn't have said it better myself, replied Nezumi. So, have you looked up what I asked you to? Of course. A job's a job. Let's go upstairs. Inukashi took his candle holder in his other hand and disappeared back into the darkness. There were more stairs. Like the ones before, they wound upstairs in a gentle curve. These ones weren't crumbled as badly. The rubble was cleared with a space just wide enough for a person to walk through. Oh, Shion murmured in surprise as they emerged at the top of the stairs. A narrow hallway ran straight before them. There was a person curled up at the edge of the hall. Beside him were a pair of dogs. They had long white fur, and they were nestled closely against the person, as if to protect him. Shion squinted his eyes, and he could make out several more of these groups of people and dogs curled up together. What are these people doing? Inukashi answered over his shoulder. They're my customers. Customers? Who is speaking? Okay, yeah. This place used to be a hotel, and it still is now. Rumor says this place used to be quite grand, but now it's just somewhere people can bunk for a bit of money if they have nowhere to stay for the night. We have beds too. If you can cough up the cash, I can give them ready. I can get them ready for you. What about those dogs? I rent them out for heating. It can get pretty cold at night, but it's not so bad if you curl up with a dog or two like them. You won't freeze to death, at least. So that's where dog lender comes from. Dogs are useful for other things too. They'll collect information, guard your property, or carry your stuff. They'll do anything. They're probably much more useful than a natural airhead like you. Nezumi clicked his tongue. That's my line. At the very end of the hall was a wooden door. Beyond it was a small room with a low ceiling and no windows. A round table stood in the center of it. Inukashi placed the candle holder down and spread an old map over the surface of the table. This map that Nezumi got his hands on, should be him, right? Okay. Sorry. This map that Nezumi got his hands on is from around 20 years ago. This is my hotel here, and LK3000 should be somewhere around here. Latch building isn't marked on this map, Nezumi added. I asked Inukashi to look into that. He ran a finger lightly over the map. It was a casual gesture, but one of understated elegance. It was a movement calculated and honed to perfection, fully aware of watching eyes. What? Nezumi tilted his head at Shion's gaze. No, I just thought that sometimes you move really elegantly. Huh? Sometimes your gestures are really captivating. I can't help but stare. Inukashi looked up at them, his gaze alternating between Nezumi and Shion's face. How can you say something like that in front of his face? He asked in disbelief. Nezumi, this guy really is naturally oblivious. How do you put up with him? I managed somehow. Shion, haven't you heard what this guy does for a job? No. Inukashi thrust his open palm towards Shion. If you can pay up, I can tell you. Selling information is another one of my trades. I don't have any money. What? You don't? Nezumi, you're taking care of a penniless bum? Inukashi's eyes narrowed. So, He has weird hair, he's an airhead, shakes hands without a second thought, and has no money. Nezumi, where did you bring him from? What do you think? I'm asking the question here. If you can pay me, I can tell you. Don't mess around, Inukashi snapped. You're the one who should be paying up. Nezumi took out a small leather pouch from his pocket. There you go. The contents of the pouch fell on the top of the map. It was a small gray mouse. It's a Miko? I think it's supposed to say Miko robot? I think it's supposed to say micro, but I don't know. It's a Miko or micro robot. It has audio and video recognition and recording sensors, and it's mounted with a solar powered micro battery. One charge will make it last for 36 hours. It can move around freely to gather information. You'll find plenty of use for the places your dogs can't get into. You were telling me you wanted one, right? Inukashi nodded. Inukashi nodded wordlessly. He moved his head up and down in an exaggerated way, much like how a small child would nod. Are you really giving this to me? He asked. Yeah, if your information is worth it. Nezumi put the mouse back into the pouch again and clenched it tightly. Inukashi's tone of voice sped up. Fine, I'll jump right to the conclusion. Latch building doesn't exist. Is that all you've got? Of course not. It doesn't exist, but there's something that goes by that name. Latch building? Latch Bill. And it's the name of a newspaper. A long time ago, there used to be a newspaper company by that name, right behind this hotel. It went bankrupt and torn down to be made into a parking lot for this place. It happened before this map was made, which is why it doesn't exist. So, Latch Bill 3F means... If it means the third floor of the newspaper company, then... I have no idea, Inukashi said abruptly. There's no way for me to know what could have been on the third floor of a newspaper that went out of business 20-something years ago. You should meet up directly with the guy that has ties to this place. There's someone with ties to it? Yeah, I got the location of one guy who has ties to Latchbill, and said guy also has interesting connections to No.6. Listen carefully. Nezumi leaned forward. Shion swallowed. There's a scene break. No.6 was shrouded in the red glow of the sunset. Nothing was more exquisite than the sunset of late autumn. The man let out a satisfied sigh. Who? Is it this bitch again? Wait, reader's note, what the fuck is going on here? What the fuck is going on here? Wait 1 second. What beauty this was. What a tranquil scene. The forest park, only days ago, had been showing a vivid contrast between turning leaves and those that were still green, but now most of the trees had lost their leaves. It was a peaceful kind of beauty, of nature that was quietly preparing for the approaching winter. He had gathered here the pinnacle of modern science. He had nature under his management, and the ultimate utopian city was nearing its completion. People were fortunate to be able to be born, raised, and live to an old age here. They were the chosen ones. There was no such thing as misfortune here. Even the occasional hurricane that came upon them was an abundant source of natural integration that watered the agriculture and farming pastures that spread from east to southern blocks. All it needed was a little more, and the land of the gods would finally be complete. A utopia where only the chosen ones would reside. It only needed a little more. Someone is speaking and I don't know who it is, so we're just gonna go neutral. Okay. You really must love the view from here, a voice said behind him, with a hint of a laugh. Wouldn't you agree that it's excellent? The man that had laughed silently shook his head. in an shook his head in an expression of refusal. He was wearing a white lab coat. I prefer the micro-universe, the world of bacteria, microbes, neurons. Who is this? Who is speaking? I want to know who's speaking. What the fuck is going on? Okay. I prefer the micro-universe, the world of bacteria, microbes, neurons, macrophages. What? Don't say that. Macrophages, viruses. I don't know how to pronounce that. When you get to something like viruses, you're at the nanometer scale. You could only see them through an electron microscope. They're very beautiful, you know. The really beautiful things are things you can't see with the naked eye. There's only so much that your eye can show you as it is. That's always been your mantra, hasn't it? You've been saying that for as long as I can remember. It's my unchanging mantra. And you also still drink strong coffee before and after supper. That's another unchanging habit of mine. The men looked at each other and chuckled quietly. They had known each other for decades. They knew well what part of the other had changed and what remained the same. So what now? I think it's about time. The man raised his custom-made coffee cup. The coffee in it remained steaming and fragrant, as if it had just been poured, thanks to the adjustment mechanisms built into the cup. Okay, interesting. I want that, but also I don't, but also I do. The man robed in the lab coat licked his bottom lip. It was his habit when he was immersed in thought. You're thinking about collecting more samples, he said. Live ones. Yes, we've already collected a few dead sample bodies, but we can't say there's nearly enough, though. We want a few more. If you want, I can find ways to go about it. How many do you need? I'll report to you later, and with how many we want for each condition based on sex, age, and history of illness. That would be great. How about the live ones? Do you want me to go into collection preparation? No, I need more time. Why? The data from the collection sample is still incomplete. We're still running analysis and uploading it to the database. I want to flesh that out first. It's taking unusually long for you. How rare. If we were able to do it publicly, things would go much more smoothly. But doing this much under wraps is going to take double the time. I want you to keep that in mind. Besides, we should have entered the live sample stage only after the dead sample database was complete. That was an unexpected occurrence. We have to investigate as to why this happened in this stage. It'll all take time. I know, the man conceded. I'm not rushing you. Make sure that everything gets carried out carefully, thoroughly, and perfectly. This is all connected to No.6's future roots. Yes, and this is the final piece. The final piece to make this place a holy city, in the actual sense, The lab coat chuckled. Cheers to the great leader. He raised his coffee cup slightly. And cheers to the great brain behind it all. The man lifted his cup as well. There was a moment of silence. The man in the lab coat spoke with a slightly lowered voice. But is it really good to go? What? Collection of the living sample. I heard a certain rat is with him. The man placed his coffee cup down and wiped his lips with his fingers. It's just one rat. It should barely be an obstacle at all. If you could get him alive as well, I'm interested in him. You want to cut him open? An autopsy. That would be rather nice. I would like to investigate every corner of his body. But before that, we need more samples. The man in the lab coat suddenly stood up and began soundlessly pacing on the thick carpet. He strode impatiently, taking large steps with his hands behind his back. It was a bad habit of his that he had since he was young. Following the movements of the tall lab-coated man with his gaze, the man reclined deeply into his desk chair. Yes, that's the main issue, the lab coat continued. The total number of samples is severely lacking. We need more. Fennec. Fennec was a nickname that had been given to the man when he was young. A desert fox. It had the smallest body and largest ears of its kind. Its ears, which could reach up to 15 centimeters long, was not only well suited for releasing body heat effectively, but possessed keen hearing ability that could detect even a grasshopper hopping in the sand. He had also heard that, contrary to its cute appearance, it had a vicious personality. It was not. I bit my tongue. Sorry. It was not a nickname that he liked very much. He had not used it nor been called by it for quite some time now. He had almost forgotten about it, but he didn't feel the same repulsion toward it as he did in his younger days. He even felt somewhat fond about it now. Fennec, the desert fox. Not bad. We don't have enough living samples either. I'd want at least 2, no, 3 more on hand, but that could be difficult. The man in the lab coat continued muttering to himself and paced increasingly quickly. He was completely oblivious to everything else around him. He had probably not even realized that he had called the man Fennec. He had been like that since he was young. His research and experiments, his speculation, his satisfaction. It was only ever about him. He had never shown any interest toward things external to him. He showed no attachment to power, money, or woman. He had no need for faith, philosophy, or morals in his life. A brain of rare intelligence and a vacant soul. Which is why he's useful all the more. The man trained his gaze on the pacing figure clad in the lab coat and smiled. You would have no use for a soul. If you did, it would only be to declare your loyalty to me. That's in his head, by the way. The lab coat stopped pacing. Fennec, let's make another living sample. I want a female this time. It might be difficult. Yes, at this stage it will be very difficult, but that's why we should prepare one ahead of time. Let's do it. There's a great risk of failure, however. Failure and sacrifice are all things we must go through in order to gain process. Don't worry, we'll be able to overcome it to hold the final pieces in our hands. Piece, one piece, singular. Sorry. I guess you're right, the lab coat agreed. Let's have supper then, shall we? This probably won't pique your interest much, but I've had it all prepared and the main course will be lamb. I've also a remarkable wine to go with. And coffee after the meal? Of course, but I beg you at least take off the lab coat while we eat. The man clapped the lab coat on the shoulder. Okay. He gave a sidelong glance at the scene out his window. Beyond the pane of thick, spotless glass, the stars were beginning to twinkle. And that's the end of part A. There is part B and a couple of notes at the end. Now we're good. Let's go on to part B. Whoa, how long is this chapter? Fucking hell, I wasn't prepared for this. I think this chapter is really long. Guys, this whole chapter is really long. Okay. Okay. I guess we better get started then. We're here. Nezumi's feet stopped. They were standing in front of a 3-story building. At least it resembled more of a building than the ruins that constituted the hotel. but in the sense that it was also falling apart, they were none too different. The arched entryway and the red brick walls had probably once carried an air of pomp, but were now strangled by vines, crumbled in places, and radiating an aura of dilapidation. Dilapidation. Okay. Nezumi jerked his chin upward. Someone's home. There was a light in the third-floor center window. From its brightness, it was most likely an electric lamp. That meant there was electricity running in this building. They pushed the wooden doors open and entered inside. There were no signs of people on the first or second floors. The stairs, which were also wooden, creaked loudly with each step they took. If Inukashi's tip was a good one, a former reporter from the Latchbill newspaper was supposed to be living here. They climbed up to the third floor. There was light spilling out from a crack of the open door into the wooden hallway, which was carpeted with a thick layer of dust. In the pool of light, there were several empty glass bottles. It was easy to tell what these bodies used to hold. Shion didn't have to pick one up to check, for the strong smell of alcohol filled the air around them. In the darkened corner of the hallway, there were towering piles of bundled paper and empty cans littered about it. Only the door from which the light was spilling was neither dry nor broken, though it was very old. Shion raised his hand to knock, but Nezumi held him back. What's wrong? No, it's just... the air is strange. Air? What do you... Before Nezumi could finish his sentence, he heard a yell from inside the room. It belonged to the man. There was the sound of furniture being knocked over, a high-pitched voice screaming angrily. He could hear the sound of glass being smashed. Sounds serious. What now, Shion? What do you mean, what now? It looks like they're busy at the moment. Should we come back another day? As if. Thought so. There was a loud noise again. A man's deep voice yelled out for help. Shion tried to burst into the room, but Nezumi restrained him and opened the door. The room was well lit by a large lamp. It was the brightest light Shion had seen since coming to the West Block. The light was illuminating clearly every corner of the room. By the window there was a large desk, and against the wall was a rather unimpressive textile sofa. The floor was covered... hang on. Whoa. Sorry. The floor was covered again with bundles of paper and books that were piled up or scattered haphazardly. But these were all things he had noticed when he had taken a good look around the room much later on. What Shion saw immediately over Nezumi's shoulder were two people entangled with each other. It was a man and a woman. The man was wearing pants, but his upper body was naked. The woman was clad in black. Her hair, cut straight across at the shoulders, was also black. She was straddling him. The hem of her slitted skirt had flipped up to reveal her thigh. She had I think there's supposed to be an A in there. She had a well-endowed, curvy body. She had a round face, round nose, and round eyes. Her face was tense. The woman swung her right hand up. Help! The man yelled. Shion realized that there was a knife in the woman's hand. Nezumi tisked his tongue shortly. You good-for-nothing! The woman shouted. Nezumi moved at the same time. Soundlessly and in a flash, he was holding the woman's wrist mid-swing. Without a word, he twisted it. The knife clattered to the floor. Shion hastily picked it up. He spotted a red knife pouch in the corner of his vision. He grabbed it reflexively and sheathed the blade. He felt relieved. What the hell are you doing? The woman screeched shrilly. She had fallen backwards on her bottom from being dragged by Nezumi. I don't think you should be swinging around a toy like this, miss. It's dangerous, Nezumi said softly. Leave me alone. What's any of this got to do with you? This good-for-nothing shitbag of a womanizer deserves to die. The woman dissolved into tears on the floor. Still holding the knife, Shion looked down at her hunched back. He didn't know what to do. There was nothing in Shion's manual that told him how to deal with this kind of situation. Nezumi knelt down and gently stroked her back as it shook with her sobs. He lowered his voice into a quiet murmur. Don't cry. No. You should cry. Cry to your heart's content. You'll feel better that way. Go on. Cry. Nezumi saying this? What? What's going on? It was like a lullaby. His whisper was deep and soothing. It soaked into Shion's soul like the sound of the rain that seeped into the basement room. He could see the woman's agitation subside as its gentleness and tranquility washed over her. But there was no gentleness or tranquility in Nezumi's gaze. After taking a quick glance around his room, his gaze stopped at the middle-aged man who was gasping, half naked on the floor. When his eyes flicked up to Shion, who was stock still, then his eyes flicked up to Shion, who was stock still, rooted to the spot. Shion took a step forward. Are you Rikiga-san? The one who used to work for the Latchbill newspaper? The man raised himself unsteadily and began to put his arms through a shirt that had been draped over the sofa. Though not exactly obese, he was rather fleshy around the shoulders and waist. There was a white scar that ran diagonally across under his right shoulder blade. Have we got the wrong person? Shion asked uncertainly. We've come here today because we heard that we could meet Rikiga-san here. You've got the right one. Oh, wait, this is the lady. You've got the right one. It was the woman who had answered. Her face was a sopping mess of tears, sweat, and snot, but she was not crying anymore. This good-for-nothing liar goes by that name. Once upon a time, he was a newspaper reporter, but now the shitty excuse for a man is reduced to making shitty porno magazines to pay for his liquor habit. Oh my god. And who's the one who had a hysteric fit when she got dumped by said excuse for a man, huh? Retorted the man who had been called Rikiga. What are you talking about? The woman shot back. You're the one who said you wanted to get married. And I'm telling you, issues have come up, and I can't get married to you anymore. What issues? Well, you see, if you're gonna try to trick me, at least take the time to think of a proper lie. I'm not one to be messed with. Sparked to anger by her own words, the woman's wrath threatened to boil over again. She suddenly lunged at Shion, breathing fast. Give me my knife back! No, I can't do that, Shion resisted. Stop, please, it's dangerous. I said give that damn thing back. What issues, huh? Let's hear your excuse. I can't believe I'm being shitted like this. I'm gonna kill you. Can't believe I'm being shitted like this? Like bullshitted? Okay. Stop. Watch it. Wait, no, who is this? Who is this, Nezumi, or stop, watch it? Nezumi stood up with one step. He strode to Rikiga's side and put a hand on his shoulder. What the oh my god. Father, is she going to be our new mother from now on? The woman froze. Her mouth gaped open and her eyelid twitched. Father? Nezumi nodded with an affectionate smile. Yes, we're his sons. You had kids? I've never heard anything about that before. The woman's voice turned hoarse. Rikiga blinked. Father and mother separated not a long time ago, Nezumi explained. But mother passed away just last month, so we came back to live with father. We've already heard before That father has someone he loves, but he said he would give up. But he said he would give up. But he said he would give up getting married so that we could live together as a family again, the three of us, right, Shion Nissan? Huh? We came all the way here searching for father, right? What? Oh, yes. We have. We're his sons. Nice to meet you. Rikuga cleared his throat a few times. That's how it is. They're my sons. I've had to take them into my care now, raise these two on my own. Living will become much more difficult. I couldn't put you through that, honey. I love you. I love you so much. But these kids need their father. I couldn't burden you by asking you to be their mother. I had no choice but to ask you to break up with me. So, that was what came up. Well, pretty much. The woman ran a hand through her hair and sighed. So that's how it is. That's how it is. The woman ran a hand through her hair again and picked up her coat and purse, which were lying on the floor. She looked at Shion and drew her chin back slightly. You have strange hair. Is it a wig? Oh, stuff happened. More issues? Like father, like son, you guys must love your issues. Oh well, fine. If that's what's going on, I'll break up with you. As if I would want a middle-aged man with kids anyway. The woman gave an energetic wave of her hand. Goodbye then. It was fun while it lasted. The door closed. Shion let the knife in his hand drop to the floor. Hello? Sorry. His palms were sweaty from nerves. Rikiga lifted the chair and placed it upright on the floor and began to gather the pieces of broken glass. There had probably been some kind of drink in it. For its contents had made a stain on the carpet that emitted such an overpowering smell of alcohol that it made Shion feel ill. Good God, she certainly let herself go, grumbled Rikiga. I hate this guy. I mean, I hated this guy from the beginning because I knew he was. Anyway, whatever. It was fun while it lasted, huh? Putting on a cool face at the last minute. Jeez. Rikiga looked alternately at Shion and Nezumi and grinned. Ugh. Sorry. You saved me from the gallows. First, let me give you my thanks. He had strong, broad shoulders and considerable height. The bridge of his nose was high, and it suited his mustache well. His face was neither handsome nor ugly. It was a face that was both energetic and with optimism, and worn with hardship. It was a face of cunning and steely, resilient willpower. Your acting could have been better, though. Especially for a star of the show like you, Eve. Eve? Eve? What is going on? More Nezumi lore? Okay. Nezumi scooped the knife off the floor and smiled thinly. You know about me? I'm your fan. I went to see your show last week. That's nice to hear, but I didn't appear in any shows last week. Really? Well, anyway, we wanted to do a special feature in our magazine about you. We asked your manager to get an interview with you, but he turned us down. He probably would, for a magazine like this. Nezumi's fingers flipped casually through the pages. The cover was a photo of a naked woman. On the whole, she was rather blurry. All the other pages were somewhat similar. Naked woman, half-naked men. Lewdness and provocation overflowed in the flimsy bound pages of the magazine. It's the go-to for young people, Rikiga said. Teaches them everything from birth control to picking up women. You should do a feature about the right way to dump a woman next time, old man. Nezumi tossed the magazine aside. Rikiga raised his hands in an exaggerated gesture. Ouch, Eve, that was pretty harsh. I thought you'd be more of a pansy. Nice to hear that coming from someone who was pinned on the floor by a woman just a minute ago. I was drunk, all right, and she suddenly just jumped at me, but I never would have guessed that she had a knife on her. Scary things, those women. Those women. They so scary things. Shut the fuck up, bitch. Shion took half a step forward. Eve, is that your real name, Nezumi? No way. It's just for work. Your work? So you're a stage actor? Nothing half as classy as that. Maybe a couple steps above this magazine. But, oh, Shion murmured in realization. So that's why you speak and move so gracefully. He's so infatuated with him. A spotlight shines on the dark stage, illuminating a single actor as he floats up out of the darkness, captivating the eyes, ears, and souls of all those who watch. His voice rings out, at times with a soaring, elegant air, at times with a pained tremor, like a wind that whistles low to the ground. Nezumi snorted. What are you imagining, Shion? We're talking about a playhouse here, in the West Block. People who've got a little spare cash to spend come out to forget their worries for a little while. We haven't got any embroidered drop curtains, decent costumes, or stage props. It's mostly impromptu song or dance. That's it. But it still makes people forget their worries, right? Huh? Shion was gazing unblinkingly at Nezumi. In these past few hours, he had experienced almost as much as, no, perhaps even more than what he'd seen and heard his entire life. Of course, this was still only just a glimpse, but he had caught a glimpse of how harsh and brutal it was just to live a day, an hour, even a moment in this world. If these people, in their brief moment of respite, choose to go down this place with their own free will, and that was where Nezumi was, then he thought it was amazing. It neither filled their bellies nor quenched their thirst, but people still yearned for the crude stage and the tales told on it, and immersed in them, they forgot their melancholy. They clapped, wept, laughed, and bustled with noise. There was no way of telling when death might come sweeping down upon them, but in this moment they could still live and enjoy life. They could live and enjoy life all the more because of it. I think that's amazing, Nezumi. Nezumi sighed, caught himself hastily, and grimaced. Knock it off. It's not as rosy as you make it out to be. You've probably never even seen a stage. You're right. In No.6, students weren't allowed to watch plays. I would have thought so, especially for top rankers like you, Mr. Elite. Everything you watched or read would be strictly limited, though you probably never even realized it because never even realized it was being withheld from you. No.6? Rikiga stopped mid-gesture as he was bringing a cigarette to his lips. Hey, wait a minute. Are you saying this wig boy is from No.6? You gotta be kidding me. This is no joke, old man. And he isn't wearing a wig. Then is it some kind of new hat? Is that what's popular in fashion these days? No, it's my real hair, Shion answered. Just a lot of things have happened due to, issues. Oh, Rikiga said. There's nothing I love more than issues. If you've really tumbled out of No.6, you must have issues like no other. I want to hear your story, and the reason behind that hair. Nezumi hoisted himself up on the desk and let his legs dangle. Does it smell, old man? What? Your nose twitched. Did you sniff out an interesting scoop, or what? Rikiga clapped a hand to his nose. Nezumi continued laughing softly. It's the same nose wild dogs make when they smell food. It twitched. Then your nostrils flared. Rikiga's brow furrowed, and an expression of clear distaste spread over his features. I've mentioned this before, Eve, I think I've had misconceptions about you. I thought you'd be more gentle and refined. I would never have imagined such a rude and brash kid. I'm disappointed, frankly. I thought you were my fan. You can count me out from now on. Good God, I don't know what you enjoy so much about taunting adults like this. Karan, Nezumi spoke quietly. Rikiga froze. Do you know a woman that goes by that name? What the fuck? Sorry, never mind. So I'm reading ahead. I should just read it instead of just reading ahead. Okay, sorry. I'm too curious. Okay. Rikiga's body began to show the signs of middle-aged weight gain. Teetered dangerously. Okay? His throat contracted as he swallowed. You know Karan? Karan? I don't know. Are you acquaintances with her? She's my mother. Rikiga appeared not to understand Shion's words immediately. He sucked in a deep breath. Mother? Oh, my name is Shion. I'm Karan's son. Son? Karan's son, huh? Who's the father? I couldn't say. You couldn't? Don't you know who he is? Is he deceased? No. I've heard from my mother that they separated shortly after I was born. It's just been the two of us all my life. I've never met my father. Nezumi continued to laugh. Are you telling me there's a possibility that he might be your son? No, that can't be. No, that can't be. Wait a minute. What was your name again? Shion. Shion. Aster. Huh. Karan did like that flower a lot. Shion, will you hold on for a minute? I'll get you a drink. I mean, a non-alcoholic one, of course. What would you like? I have everything. Oh yes, here. Let's move somewhere more comfortable where we can talk. Rikiga knocked the wall behind the sofa and pressed his right hand on it. The wall soundlessly slid to the side. Wow, Nezumi whistled. Fingerprint recognition? You've got fancy gimmicks in this place. Guess it's not as shabby as it looks. Beyond the wall appeared a rather extravagant room. The floor was lined with a luxurious carpet, and there were leather chairs, a leather sofa, and a table. There was a fire burning in the fireplace set into the wall. Come in, this way. I'll pour some coffee. Are you hungry? I have some excellent pie. Shion had forgotten that he was starving. His empty stomach ached. What kind of pie? Nezumi said. I prefer meat. You can shut up. Rikiga waved his hand irritably at Nezumi. You're horrible treating us so differently like that. Rikiga ignored him and disappeared into the small adjacent room. The aroma of coffee soon wafted over them. Coffee and pie, huh? I don't believe it. Shion had barely tasted any such savory food since escaping from No.6. Nezumi let his gaze wander about the room. You're right, they're luxury items for sure. And seeing how this room is outfitted, it looks like Inukashi's information was spot on after all. If that's the case, Shion said pensively. No, that can't be. What can't be? Mother once told me that my father was fast and loose with money and women, and was one step away from being an alcoholic. A hopeless good-for-nothing? Yeah, a hopeless good-for-nothing. But she said he was really gentle, honest, and straightforward. What's that supposed to mean? Is your mama still attached to him? I have no idea, but it fits his image, right? Nezumi threw a glance at the entrance to the small room and pulled a face. I don't know about gentle, honest, and straightforward, but he sure is fast and loose with women, and halfway there being an alcoholic. Now that you mention it, I guess you guys kind of look similar around the eyes. Well, we don't have DNA testing here, so there would be no way to know for sure. Shion, you don't look too well. No. I'm probably just hungry. Don't worry. Just the idea of that being my father would make me feel ill too. I'd probably break out into a fever. You've got a fever? Are you alright? Rikuga set a tray down on the table. On it was coffee, pie, and a glass of whiskey. Shion's mouth watered. Karan liked pie too, Rikuga said reflectively. She also liked bread and cakes. She still loves them, Shion replied. She bakes bread for a living now. Baking, huh? Mm-hmm. I see. An idea sparked in Shion's mind. Do you remember about the cherry cake? Cherry cake? I'm not too sure. What do you want to eat cherry cake? No, it's just... My mother told me once that the day I was born, my father came home with 3 boxes, each with a whole cherry cake inside, and the 2 of them ate it together. Rikika lifted the glass of amber liquid and squinted. Is that so? One of Karan's fond memories, huh? But unfortunately, I have no recollection of that. I've never bought cherry cake or eaten it with Karan. I was never a resident of No.6. Shion, I'm not your father. Nezumi swallowed his mouthful of pie and nudged Shion's shoulders. So he says. What a relief, huh, Shion? What's that supposed to mean, Eve? It means exactly what it means. Shion fished out Karan's memo. And then it's a picture of the note. We relied on this memo to get us here. Rikuga stared intently at Karan's scribbled writing. Shion spoke. Shortly after I escaped from No.6, my mother sent this to me. She must have thought you were still here. I'm just wondering how you... No, my mother was what Shion planned to say afterwards, but his words caught in his throat. Oi, a tear had spilled from Rikiga's eye. Karan. She hadn't forgotten about me. She remembered me. Her writing, still the same as I remember it. He bowed his head and broad shoulders. His bowed head and broad shoulders were trembling slightly. Nezumi nudged Shion on the shoulder again. Ugh, would you look at that? The old man is a teary drunk. At this age, too. Talk about embarrassing, huh? Shut up. What's wrong with getting a little teary? You're always wailing and yelling on that stage. It's all acting. What are you saying yours is too... what? Are you saying yours is an act too, old man? Rikuga glared at Nezumi with watery eyes and raised himself heavily. He extracted a folder from the back of this sturdy bookshelf. He drew a single photo from it and placed it in front of Shion. This is Karan and I. An image of his mother was smiling back at him. Young, beautiful, and wearing a sleeveless one-piece dress. Beside her stood Rikika, much thinner and well-proportioned than now, even with a hint of boyishness in his features. It was taking decades ago, not long after we met each other. Karan was still a student, and she was interested in the columns I wrote, and came to visit me. The 3rd floor of the company building was my workplace, and when I'd just gotten back from an interview, she was sitting there. It was a rainy day and thundering outside, but she came all the way here to see me. Rikika sniffled. Shion and Nezumi looked at each other. Nezumi gave a long, exaggerated sigh. You used to be a reporter, didn't you, old man? Can you summarize it a little bit more efficiently? So basically what you're saying is that you and Shion's mama first met on the 3rd floor of the Latchbill Company building, am I right? That's right. We got along great. I enjoyed spending time with Karan. I think it must have been love. Back in those days, No.6 wasn't as closed off as it was now. People were more or less free to come and go. I'd just started my career as a journalist, and one of the things I was sniffing out was about No.6. Sniffing out? So you had some suspicion about that city, huh, old man? You must have had a decent nose back then. Too bad it's useless now. Rikiga fixed Nezumi with a glare again and contorted his face in an odd half-grimace. Eve, I wasn't kidding when I said I was your fan. When I first went to see you, you were standing center stage and reciting a poem. Arthur Rimbaud, I think it was. Rimbaud, I think it was. I was captivated by your appearance and your voice. Nezumi licked the grease from the pie off his fingers and crossed his legs. But, in truth, I have wept too much. Dawns are heartbreaking. Every moon is atrocious, and every sun bitter. Acrid love has swollen me with intoxicating torpor. Oh, let my Neil burst. Oh, let me go into the sea. Shion, know what this is? Oh, that was... Wait, who is saying this? Who is saying this? I don't know. A stanza from The Drunken Boat, if I'm not mistaken. Nezumi chuckled. Racing up that learning curve, aren't you? I can treat you to a little more fan service if you want, old man. How about it? No thanks. But let me say this. You were brilliant on that stage. I almost can't believe that it was the same person as this insolent brat that's in front of me. So do me a favor and stop talking. Don't be mad, Nezumi drawled. He uncrossed... Drawled? Nezumi drawled? Let me do that again. Don't be mad, Nezumi drawled. He uncrossed his legs and his face turned serious. Expression vanished from his voice. It became flat and heavy. It was a voice that was startlingly different from moments before. In the beginning, 6 cities were founded, including No.6, as model cities for the future. They were models created in the search for a way humankind could live comfortably in a land that was reduced to rubble, riddled with abnormal weather patterns, mostly due to the carbon dioxide from massive consumption of fossil fuels during the wars. That was what it was. That was what it was at first. The plan was... Oh my god. This is such a huge lore dump. We're just gonna get through this, I guess. The plan was that each city would take part in the research and development of this, of things like safe energy that could be mass produced to replace fossil fuels and nuclear power, and scientific technology that ranged from the nanometer to cosmic scales in a way that was appropriate for the conditions of each city. This was in hopes that someday everyone on this earth would be free of any threat in their life, whether it be war, catastrophe, or plague. And this first step toward the world of threat-free life, the cornerstone of hope, was No.6. In all respects, this was the objective at first. Wasn't it, old man? Rikiga drained the rest of his glass of whiskey in one gulp. He coughed lightly. So I guess the classics weren't the only thing you could recite off by heart, Eve? Your manager told me he didn't know your real name, age, or whatever you were, or where you were born. He said you were a wanderer that just appeared out of nowhere. No, I'm not buying it. You're not just any traveler entertainer. What's your real identity? Nose around my business afterwards. So during the time this picture was taken, No.6 still... Oh boy. No.6 was still seen as hope for all humankind, right? But you had doubts. A fine nose you must have had to smell something fishy there. Sorry, this chapter is very long and I'm getting sleepy. When I became a journalist, No.6 was already in the process of change, Rikiga said. Research organizations were gathering all sorts of skilled labor, and their departments flourished. But on the other hand, Release of information and free speech were becoming more and more restricted. I thought, is this really going to become a utopian city? I had my doubts. You and your smart mouth are right. Back then, I had a nose that could sniff out something that I couldn't see. While I was scrambling about, the barriers spread further and grew more secure, and going to and fro from outside parts became much more difficult. Soon you couldn't even enter or exit without a permit from the city. It happened in no time. Since I was a journalist, they made sure I could never set foot in that place again. They stamped out the freedom of the press just like that. Of course, that meant I couldn't see Karan anymore. To tell you the truth, I think that hit me harder than not being able to do my work. A decade and some later, you get what you're seeing now. The surroundings of No.6 became places whose sole purpose was to service this one central city. Agriculture lands, cattle pastures, recreational forest, and this is their garbage can. Destitution, dispute, disease, violence. The rubbish that No.6 spits out all ends up here. You two probably don't know this, but this town used to be a small, but much more decent place than it is now. At least, not a place that's been classified. Is shelved away with... What? At least not a place... At least, not a place that's been classified and shelved away with an impersonal label like the West Block. But they've turned this place into a garbage can. What's this hope they're speaking of now? Some holy city this is. They're doing the name a disgrace. It's more like a devil that releases toxins everywhere it goes. I guess humans and cities are similar then, Nezumi remarked. In time, they forget the ambitions they set out with and corrupt themselves to no end. Nezumi drained the rest of his coffee and threw a glance at the man who had just finished talking. What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying that I've been corrupted? Can you say that you aren't? Shion let his eyes flit to Nezumi's profile. He felt that Nezumi was provoking Rikiga. Rikiga responded to the provocation. No, maybe he had just been led into a skillful trap. You're criticizing me about how I've become a drunk, huh? How I've been reduced to making magazines full of naked pictures, drinking as much booze as I can bathe in, and to top it off, nearly getting killed by a woman. You sound bitter, old man, but using pretty words isn't going to help you survive here. Everyone knows that. What I'm curious about is how decked out this room is. A warm room and good food. You can't get those things easily. I can't see all of your income for this coming from those porno mags, which means you've got a hold of someone's purse strings, am I right? Nezumi smiled. It was a haughty but elegant smile, like of one passing divine judgment. I can see it. I heard high officials from No.6 come here secretly ever so often. It says ever so often, but I think it's supposed to say every so often. Ooh. Where was I? Hello? Rikiga's mouth made a chewing motion. Old man, I heard you take orders from these men and bring them to the kind of woman they want. Like the middleman in a deal. I guess your connections from your journalist days ended up being pretty useful, and the enormous payment you get from these guys pays for this luxurious lifestyle. You suck up to the guys who are pretty much at the core of the city that you just called the devil, and leech off the good parts, while you live off women who have no choice but to sell their bodies to avoid cold and starvation. You don't call that corruption? All expression vanished from Rikiga's face. It had no light or shadow, and looked strangely flat. The flames from the fireplace were lighting the right half of his face. What did you hear about that? From a dog. Dog? A dog told me you heard. A dog told me he heard you and some man whispering under the stairs. Afterward, the man got in his car and drove right through the special gates of the access control office and got into No.6 without any difficulty. The kind of people that can go between No.6 and the West Block freely are limited. Only high officials who have a special identification card with them can. Everyone else will get destroyed at the gates. Shion gulped. He felt like he was watching a stage play. He could read nothing from the man's face, which was colored crimson by the flames. Suddenly, its mouth twisted. What? Who is speaking now? Who is speaking now? How would you like to join, then? Join? Who is speaking? I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's speaking right now. I'm guessing this is Nezumi next. Okay. No.6 is a boring place. You're not allowed to have a disorderly lifestyle. Beggars and prostitutes aren't allowed to exist. Everyone's listless. Wait, is this Shion speaking? No? Wait, I'm so confused. Please. Please, I just need an indication of who is speaking right now, but it's all dialogue from here on. Wait, oh, okay, this is Rikiga speaking. No.6 is a boring place. You're not allowed to have a disorderly lifestyle. Beggars and prostitutes aren't allowed to exist. Everyone's listless, so they come here to stretch their wings. They come laugh at women who sell themselves for whatever meager cash they'll take them. Yeah, okay, I'm right. The men reconfirm that they're a specially privileged class and take joy in that again. After their short moment of fun, they go back to their boring home. Those kind of people are the ones that keep coming back. So business is booming, huh? That's good for you. Thankfully, yes. But their demands seem to have no end. They give me different orders every time. First they want a dark-skinned girl, next they want a young girl with a tattoo all down her back. It gets stressful sometimes. Shion had his head bowed. It pained him to listen to Rikiga talking. No.6 was a beautiful city on its surface. Now he was hesitant whether to call that real beauty, but nevertheless it was orderly. Its nature and buildings maintained a delicate balance, neither one over-asserting itself, and all its people were gentle and polite. Behind all of that was the truth that he was hearing now. His eyes met with Karan's in the photograph. Mom, the place where we lived, the place where you still live now, was just a monster wearing a mask of beauty. Mom. And you're inviting me to join you in headhunting for women? It was Nezumi's dry, brittle voice. Rikiga laughed. It was vulgar and insulting to the ears. Never. That would be a waste of good labor that could be put to better use. I've actually been thinking about it ever since I saw you on that stage. You could rake in as much money as you want. It should be a piece of cake for you to sweet-talk those bored stiffs into showering you with money. What do you think? I'll pay way more than that shabby hut of a playhouse. Are you telling me to take customers? Has the alcohol got into your brain, old man? Rikiga snickered. Nope, that's not what he did. Rikiga sneered. Don't try to play cool with me. God knows where you've come from and where you've been. A wandering actor like you has probably had experience with it anyway. It's no use pretending you're all innocent. Shut up! It was Shion who had yelled. He whipped the coffee cup and its contents at Rikiga. He leapt over the table and grabbed him by the shirt, which was soaked through, and leaned in with all his weight. Rikiga gave a short cry as he fell to the floor. That's enough, Shion yelled angrily. How dare you say something so degrading? Apologize! Apologize to him! Shion straddled Rikiga and shook him roughly. The back of Rikiga's head banged against the floor repeatedly. Jeez. Still holding him by the collar, Shion closed his hands around Rikiga's throat. Jeez. Can't breathe, Rikiga gasped. Shion, please, I really can't. I'll apologize, so stop. Shut up, you shameless. Shame on you. A pair of hands slid under his armpits, and he was dragged backwards. Shion, that's good enough. Any more and the old man's gonna pass out. Rikiga curled up and coughed. That was a surprise, Nezumi murmured, still holding Shion from behind. He really sounded stunned. I never imagined you'd resort to violence. I guess even you let the blood get to your head sometimes, huh? Enough to go attacking people like that. First time in my life, said Shion, slightly out of breath. I can tell. Your heart is going a mile a minute. Shion turned and impatiently brushed Nezumi's hand away. Why aren't you angry? Angry? If I let a joke like that get to me every time, I'd be going mad all year round. I'm used to it. It's no big deal. Idiot! Idiot? Shion, what are you getting all worked up for? You're an idiot. What he said wasn't a joke. Don't say you've gotten used to it. Don't. His eyes burned. A tear spilled before he could screw his eyes shut. Shion, come on, don't cry. Why would you... I can't believe you're crying, Nezumi said exasperatedly. He insulted you. Huh? He insulted you. He said horrible things, lumped you in with the filthy officials of No.6. But you say it's no big deal. You weren't even angry about it. And that made me feel more helpless and angry. So angry. I don't even know what to do anymore. Nezumi opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again. I lost my place. Then closed it again. He yanked the tablecloth and thrust the end of it towards Shion. This is all I've got, but you can wipe your face on it. Okay. Shion, the one who got insulted was me and not you. Don't cry for other people. Don't get into fights for other people. Fight and cry only for yourself. I don't understand what you're saying. I guess you wouldn't. Sometimes it's like we speak different languages. Look, there's snot coming out of your nose. Wipe it. Come on. I always find it impossible to understand you. Even if we spent our lives together, I probably still wouldn't understand you. You're right in front of me, but at the same time, it's like you're far away. That's probably why. Rikiga rose to his feet behind Shion. I'm sorry for interrupting your moment, but I want to let you know that tablecloth is silk. I had a hard time coming across that thing, so I'd appreciate if you didn't wipe your nose on it. He peered into Shion's face. Your angry face looked just like Karan's. I felt that I was being scolded by Karan herself. Though with her, I've never been yelled at that violently. Then he turned to Nezumi and lowered his head in apology. I'm sorry. I went too far. I deserve to be punched. Looks like my morals have rotted right through. They haven't rotted. They're just pickled in alcohol, that's all. Nezumi gave Shion a light push on the back. I think we can call it a day. Let's go home. Sure, but I have to clean up first. Nezumi laughed. You really are a well-behaved little boy, aren't you? Make fun of me all you want, but I'm still going to clean up. Shion bent to retrieve the coffee cup. Nezumi also reached for the folders and plates scattered on the floor. His body stiffened. His breath caught in his throat, and he was frozen. Nezumi, what's wrong? This. Nezumi's fingertips were trembling slightly as they held a single photograph. It had probably fallen out of one of the folders. Rikiga narrowed his eyes. What's the matter? Oh, that. There were several men and women in the picture, with Karan in the center. It's a photo from the last time I entered No.6. It's a picture of Karan and her friends. This man. Nezumi pointed at the tall man standing at Karan's side. That guy, huh? Said Rikiga absent-mindedly. Who was he again? I think he said he was in an institution for biological research. Oh, shit. Looks like a bright fellow, doesn't he? I can't remember much about him, though. He didn't really stand out. Eve, you know this guy? I might. How do you know him? Nezumi drew a breath and answered quietly. He's my godfather. Fuck. Fuck. What? That's the end of the chapter. Fuck. Institution for Biological Research? Is that the guy in the lab coat that we met earlier? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Okay, things are really going down now. Okay. Oh my god, that was so fucking long. That was so long. But it's fine. Oh man. Okay. I'm gonna go. We're gonna sit with that and then I'll do another chapter tomorrow. Oh wow. Oh wow, 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 that's exciting. Okay. But that is all from me today. I will leave you on that cliffhanger for like one day. Because the next chapter is gonna come out tomorrow, I guess I can say that. But yeah, I'll see you later. Bye.